Here is a news. Remember Pizzagate? Of course you don't, because it was a dumb lie invented by dumb people that eventually drove one particular dumb person to walk his dumb ass into a pizza parlor with a semi-automatic rifle and shoot up the place dumbly. It was a conspiracy theory spun out of the thousands of emails stolen from Hillary Clinton's campaign manager John Podesta and released to the public by WikiLeaks, the organization run by a professional bail jumper and possible 19th century magician trapped in our world by a goblin's curse, Julian Assange. Dummies across the internet insisted they had uncovered a series of coded messages hidden within the emails that detailed the existence of a child sex trafficking ring, servicing several top-level officials of the Democratic Party and operating out of the basement of a Washington, D.C. pizzeria that does not actually have a basement. The non-existent and wholly imaginary evidence was so compelling that it convinced a 28-year-old man to drive all the way up to D.C. from North Carolina to try and rescue the children with his constitutionally mandated gun. Pizzagate was just one cushion in the no girls allowed couch fort that was the far-right's response to Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party at large during the 2016 election. But that was almost 2 years ago. Hillary lost, the Republican Party controls every branch of the government, and racist, woman-hating, homophobic fascists around the country finally feel safe again. Because in America, we stand for the national anthem, and we salute our flag, and we Christmas with the lights on, and we call her Mary, because marriage is between a man and a woman. It's Adam and Christmas Eve, not Adam and Christmas Steve. There's no reason to keep peddling wildly improbable conspiracy theories about the Democratic Party steeped in falsehoods and self-contradictions, right? Oh, that's wrong. Wait, that's wrong? It's weird that that's wrong. Pizzagate hasn't gone anywhere, actually. In fact, it's only become more insane as the insane marzipan taffy bellows that is President Donald J. Trump has been in office, blowing on the coals of wild, baseless conspiracy. The denial of objective reality and the construction of an elaborate deep state network of conspirators Trump and his supporters have engaged in has developed, mutated, evolved, if you will, into an all-encompassing plot referred to as QAnon, also as the Storm and the Great Awakening. What is QAnon? It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe of far-right conspiracy theories, connecting every bald-faced lie, political failing, and just weird fucking piece of goddamn toddler gibberish orbiting President Donald J. Trump, the president of an entire country. An entire country. According to the theory, every single president in American history has been a vicious criminal. And that part's actually, that's pretty true. But according to the Storm, every president has been part of a secret cabal of devil-worshipping child murderers controlling all the world's wealth, including former President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who has never been president. Despite that handicap, Hillary commands an army of death squads responsible for killing dozens of people over the years to prevent them from releasing incriminating information on the Clintons. Every single one of the alleged murders was either a confirmed accident, suicide, or drug-related killing with absolutely zero connection to Bill or Hillary Clinton. One was a guy who died of pneumonia, and a few of those motherfuckers got killed so hard they seem to have never even existed. That's why they call her Hillary. Her death squads are that good. Anyway, the story goes that the military finally decided to overthrow this cabal because for some reason the deep state Illuminati secretly controlling the entire world and using their power to conceal monstrous acts of evil didn't include the United States military and convinced humanity's one true savior to run for president and dismantle the centuries-old globalist conspiracy and send those devil-worshipping kitty fiddlers to prison. Their choice of savior is of course Donald J. Trump, a 72-year-old reality television and beauty pageant host with zero military, political, or law enforcement experience. In the 19 months since he took office, Trump and his fellow white hat operatives have been dealing out sealed indictments in secret, quietly taking down each member of the devil-molesting child worshippers one at a time so they can't regroup and consolidate their power. When the moment is right, the Don Mandarin-Chief, or Small Hander in Grief? Don Mandarin-Chief, is going to spring the final trap, unmask the conspiracy, and toss those evil sons of bitches into Guantanamo Bay, the prison where we put people who haven't committed any crimes. Now, asking anyone to buy into the storm, and specifically the idea that Donald Trump is waging a secret war against a centuries-old cult of satanic pedophiles at the highest level of the American government, is asking them to choke down a pretty tall margarita, served at room temperature at the Trump Grill, of course. Luckily, there is compelling, corroborating testimony backing up all this wild fantasy from some completely anonymous dipshit on the internet. Beginning in October of 2017, a user on 4chan began posting vague, cryptic messages under the username Q, claiming to be a top-level Washington insider with Q clearance, the highest security clearance in the country. Q insists these are highly classified leaks, confirming both the existence of a hidden cabal of literally evil Democrats and President Trump's top-secret mission to destroy them. Over the past 9 months, Q has gained a substantial following of people who meticulously try to decode every one of the mysterious, supposed informers' messages. During that time, Q has moved on from 4chan and begun dropping his or her, but let's be honest, it's definitely his, esoteric insider poetry completely anonymously on 8chan. You know, just like Edward Snowden did. The theory ultimately traces back to a single quote. Maybe it's the calm before the storm, inexplicably delivered by Trump during a photo op at a White House dinner last October. Q-heads, Q-tips, have decided the storm Trump mentioned refers to the president's covert mission of dismantling the deep state by secretly detaining public figures and allowing them to continue living their public lives as if they haven't just been hit with a federal indictment, which is a thing that has literally never happened, and not just a random cliche that popped into his old stupid head and came farting out through his puffy fish lips without a second thought, which is a thing he literally does all of the time. He's a stupid old man who constantly says meaningless bullshit because he thinks it sounds cool. He's not signaling for all the Trumpers at home to break out their decoder rings, you absolute goddamn maniacs. Childishly outlandish conspiracy theories about the government are nothing new, but here's why QAnon and the storm are unique. Normally, conspiracy theories are constructed by a person or group with little to no power as a way to explain the greater power held by another group and vilify that power as being sinister, stolen, or otherwise unfairly achieved and held. It's a thing you do to feel better about losing. In a recent Daily Beast article, University of Miami professor Joseph Usinski said, "Conspiracy theories are for losers. Normally, you don't expect the winning party to use them, except when they're in trouble." Interesting choice of words there. But the proponents of the storm and the diehard followers of QAnon, who dedicate hundreds of pages of analysis to every cryptic 3-line message Q leaves, are all conservatives who definitely cast their vote for Trump in 2016 and presumably vote along party lines and during state and local elections. And as you may remember, Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016 as a Republican candidate. And like I mentioned earlier, the Republican Party controls every single branch of the government. Now, on paper, that doesn't really sound like losers who are in some kind of trouble. Again, on paper. The reality is, hundreds of QAnon supporters marched in D.C. this April demanding transparency from the Justice Department, although they never clarified what aspects or operations of the Justice Department should be more transparent or what exactly they meant by transparency. In June, a man carrying QAnon signs and guns blockaded the Hoover Dam with a homemade armored truck and demanded the release of a report on Hillary Clinton's emails, a report that had in fact already been released. Do these patriots sound like losers in some kind of trouble to you? And in case you thought it was just the common folk speaking truth to power, think again. Several influential public figures are lending their important voices to the cause of hooting out lip-wiggling bullshit to justify a fantasy of jailing a former president and a former Secretary of State for the unspeakable crime of running for president while not being a white male. I'm talking about important voices like, oh, Roseanne Barr, that's a good one to have. Retired Major League Baseball star Curt Schilling is another, hopping on his Breitbart podcast to say, a group of people that are very Christian, focused group of people, who believe the deep state is real, which I don't think we can deny anymore, that the deep state exists. But I want you to go to YouTube, and I want you to search for Q for Beginners Part 1. Who is Q? And there's a gentleman whose handle is Praying Medic, and it's a 4-minute and 50-second video that basically kind of lays out what Q is. Schilling, of course, was sued by the state of Rhode Island for defaulting on a $75 million loan to make a fantasy role-playing game with the guy who created Spawn, and was fired as a commentator for ESPN for tweeting out a transphobic meme and insisting that Hillary Clinton should be buried under a jail somewhere. Whew! Wow. It's wild that Hillary's death squads let him get away with that. A third high-thetan believer in QAnon and the storm before which came the calm is Cheryl Sullinger, the vice president of Operation Rescue, a pro-life organization that seeks to document, publicize, and prosecute abortion abuses. All right, nobody likes abuses. Sullinger and her husband were both accomplices in an attempted abortion clinic bombing in 1987, providing a wig to the bomber to use as a disguise, for which she served 2 years in federal prison. She was also implicated in the murder of Dr. George Tiller, the medical director of Women's Health Care and Services, a clinic that provided late-term abortions. After surviving 1 firebombing and 1 shooting in the 1980s, Tiller was fatally shot in the head by anti-abortion extremist Scott Roeder in 2009 during a Sunday morning church service in Wichita in which Dr. Tiller was serving as an usher. Because if you want to destroy an enemy of Jesus, you do it on Sunday morning in church, where he works as an usher. Sullinger initially denied having anything to do with Roeder until her phone number was found in Roeder's car. She then admitted that she had been in contact with Roeder, informing him of Dr. Tiller's scheduled court dates when the doctor was on trial for conducting late-term abortions. She claimed, "I was polite enough to give him the information. I had no reason not to." Who knew? You knew, Cheryl. You and your husband tried to bomb a clinic in 1987, Cheryl. Why else would you be obsessively keeping track of a physician's whereabouts during a high-profile trial involving late-term abortions to such a degree that you were able to immediately regurgitate his schedule for some random dude who sought you out as the vice president of an anti-abortion organization who once participated in the attempted bombing of a women's health clinic, Cheryl? So we've got a racist TV comedian, a transphobic baseball player, and a convicted domestic terrorist who probably helped murder a guy. Interesting. What about my buddy Sean Hannity? Oh good, there he is. This is, of course, millionaire Fox News personality Sean, my face is a thumb that was stung by a bee, Hannity, retweeting Praying Medic, a name you might recognize from the glowing endorsements of these howling dickheads. Praying Medic is a self-described spiritual healer who runs a supernatural living ministry and who believes Donald Trump to be God's chosen leader because he and his wife had recurring dreams about Trump taking them out to breakfast and being nice to them. Recently, Praying Medic, who again is an anonymous person on the internet with no verifiable credentials, has published several YouTube videos analyzing the myriad intricate threads of QAnon, including this one, in which he reads 80 of his own tweets aloud for 28 minutes. Naturally, Sean, Mr. Potato Skull Hannity, absorbed all of this information and decided, whoa, this guy definitely knows what he's talking about. So he shared a piece of Praying Medic's sleuthing, insinuating that a Washington Post article about the Ecuadorian government trying to reach some kind of solution with the British government over WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, currently hiding in an Ecuadorian embassy to avoid standing trial for sexual assault and rape, was actually a cover story, and that Assange had been rescued from the embassy by Donald Trump's secret justice machine before he could be removed and assassinated by Hillary. That was back in January. It is now July, and Assange is still in the Ecuadorian embassy. But he's no longer allowed to use the internet, or else they will kick him out into London to get arrested for violating his bail after an arrest for sexual assault and rape. And of course, it wouldn't be an episode of Cody's Shody without my favorite kid who definitely insisted he lost his spot on the Sandlot team to affirmative action pick Benny the Jet Rodriguez, Charlie Kirk. Kirk is, of course, the founder of Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization predicated on the idea that conservative students are being persecuted in colleges across the country, despite the fact that Kirk himself was a conservative high school student who got to appear on Fox Business Network and claimed that his high school textbooks had a liberal bias and used that appearance to get money from one of the biggest GOP donors in the country to fund his new organization, and didn't actually attend college. Charles Smirk recently met with popular QAnon proponent Liz Crokin and assured her that he would start talking a lot more about child trafficking, and then they posed for this picture in public. Come on, guys, you're making it too easy for Hillary's death squads. You can't have a meeting of two important voices in the storm following the calm that's before it without having a designated survivor on standby. You need a Sutherland in your corner. Crokin is a former O'Reilly Factor intern and gossip columnist who filed a lawsuit against her ex-boyfriend and then wrote a semi-autobiographical novel in which she accused him of running a pedophile ring. Not the Clinton pedophile ring, a totally separate pedophile ring that she almost certainly didn't invent just because she was mad at a person. You can find her on Twitter sharing memes with headlines about individuals being accused of or arrested for things like sexual assault and child pornography. These are real headlines, all surrounding this center headline, which describes an underground pedophile ring being run for DC elites, except it's a Conspiracy Sites Live headline version of, once again, an individual being arrested for a crime that isn't that, proving QAnon is real. Now, we've had our share of gigs, chucks, and smile booms over these celebrity endorsements, but they're legitimately concerning. Sure, Roseanne and Curt Schilling are occasionally relevant media personalities, but Sean Hannity reaches millions of people every time he opens the lower part of his head to let stupid wind escape. And while QAnon and the storm's many well-deserved detractors point out that the theory only seems to really take hold with older, less tech-savvy Americans, you know, the same generation of people that used to warn all us teens not to believe everything we read on the internet, Charlie Kirk is like 26. He's young enough that he still insists on people calling him Charlie. The goal of Kirk's Turning Point USA is reaching young people with his very bad ideas. And if sweet little infant baby Charlie Kirk starts telling his followers that QAnon is definitely a real government insider and the storm is the most incredible secret crusade without a shred of verifiable evidence that the world has ever known, they're gonna believe him. Recently, the official Twitter account of the Hillsborough County Republican Party in Florida shared a video by our main man praying medic called QAnon for Beginners, really breaking down the haunted dungeon scribblings behind the storm occurring after the calm, thus being in sequence. The tweet reads, "You may have heard rumors about QAnon, also known as Q, who is a mysterious, anonymous inside leaker of deep state activities and counter-activities by President Trump." Okay, stop. Hold on. Just real quick, they don't say Q alleges to be a mysterious, anonymous inside leaker. They say Q is a mysterious, anonymous inside leaker. This is an official Republican Party organization confirming that QAnon is actually a government insider, based on absolutely no evidence except for an hour-long YouTube video made by some f***ing person who saw it on 4chan. You can't do that, man. Words mean things. That's literally the only reason words exist. So even though the tweet was subsequently deleted, it still contained language that confirmed Q's alleged identity. It was posted by an official Republican office, and all of their followers saw it. This has been this week's installment of Words Mean Things, you grumble doobs. The point is, QAnon and the storm contractually obligated to appear after the calm are creeping into the mainstream to the point where celebrities, media pundits, and offices of the Republican Party are promoting a conspiracy theory that makes about as much logical sense as an Escher illusion painted by frightened spiders. And that's strange, considering all of these people who have latched on to QAnon are Republicans, or generally support the Republican agenda. For the group currently holding all of the power in the country to be so obsessively pushing the narrative that their political opponents are literally evil, that they latch on to a self-contradictory piece of Donnie the Vampire Slayer fan fiction written by 4chan is bizarre. Especially when these same crusaders for freeing the imaginary child sex slaves at the center of the Qanon conspiracy, which again is based entirely on the word of an anonymous internet user without one single piece of actual evidence, aggressively do not give a shit about actual child molesters. When it was revealed that Republican senatorial candidate Roy Moore had sexually assaulted 3 women when they were young teens and Moore was in his 30s, claims supported by the women's testimonies and actual physical evidence, various conservative mouthpieces and Moore's supporters quickly tried to discredit the allegations as a smear campaign orchestrated by the deep state. The very deep state Donald Trump is now working to dismantle from within. Roy Moore got banned from the mall for creeping on teens and maybe also the YMCA. Recently, Ohio Republican Congressman and House Freedom Caucus leader Jim Jordan has been hit with allegations that he ignored reports of sexual abuse while he was a wrestling coach at Ohio State University. 7 men have come forward accusing their former team doctor of abuse and harassment and allege that then-coach Jordan was aware of what was going on and did nothing to stop it. In response, Jordan went on Fox News and pointed out that the law firm currently leading the investigation at Ohio State was the same law firm that had worked for the DNC and commissioned the Steele dossier, which is the dossier that triggered the Mueller probe into whether or not Donald Trump got his ridiculous ass entangled in some hijinks with the Russian government. Jordan then insinuated that this was evidence of a deep state conspiracy to discredit him, and howling right-wing rage froth factories Breitbart and the Gateway Pundit dutifully boosted that signal. Rush Limbaugh even added his own distinctly jowly brand of froth to Jordan's aid on his radio show, insisting that Jim Jordan is the next target of the deep state. And let's not forget the Lord Protector himself, humanity's chosen champion, the sword God handed down from heaven to destroy the deep state's clandestine child sex flume, Donald J. Trump. Trump, who has been accused of sexual assault by no less than 6 adult women, was the subject of a civil suit filed by a woman who alleges that Trump assaulted her when she was 13 years old. The suit was filed in 2016, which you may recognize as the year Trump was elected president. Also named in the suit is billionaire and convicted child molester Jeffrey Epstein, who was implicated in a sworn affidavit as having run an actual child sex ring and using his private jet, on which Trump has almost definitely flown, using underage women recruited from Trump's Mar-a-Lago country club, where Trump has definitely been. When asked about Epstein in a 2002 interview, Trump said, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life." But none of this matters to Trump's supporters. It's all just more attempts by the deep state conspirators to undermine the divine warrior sent to break their unseen stranglehold on the country. The irony is there are so many provable conspiracies connected to Trump. It's like a junk drawer full of obvious crimes. You have to move some out of the way in order to see all of them. Yet his supporters are manufacturing truly, laughably absurd theories like QAnon in order to be able to believe that every single action he takes is actually good, no matter how dumb, inconsequential, or damaging it may objectively appear to be. And like I said at the top of the episode, that kind of behavior is generally not seen by the group currently in power, but by the group that is lost or is in danger of losing power. One of Trump's chief governing strategies, in fact, the only thing the man does on a regular basis, cogent enough to be called a strategy, is fomenting fear. He constantly panders to his base by insisting that everything they have is in danger of being taken away from them by Democrats, immigrants, and agents of social reform, and that he is the only one who can protect them and their way of life.
I alone can fix it.
And when you recognize that Trump's base is locked in this constant state of fear, it starts to make sense why things like Pizzagate and QAnon take hold and spread. Because at that point, not even having all the power in the country will make you feel safe. And when people like Trump, Jim Jordan, Roy Moore, Sean Hannity, Charlie Kirk, Rush Limbaugh, and literally any of the sad cartoon characters currently running the GOP legitimize QAnon, whether to cover their own child molesting asses or cover the child molesting ass of someone that helps them make great deals of money, they're engaging in fascist tactics, consciously or not. If you remember from that one episode where I talked about it a bunch, fascism, at its root, is a reaction to the left and is characterized by an obsession with a plot. And Pizzagate and QAnon are both efforts to literally demonize the left, because there are literal demons involved in both conspiracies. They're a way to misdirect the president's obvious dumbness and probable adjacency to actual child sex trafficking, and keep people in obsessive terror of the left. And before you say, how is that any different from the left's obsession with the Trump-Russia conspiracy? It's because there's an ongoing federal investigation into the Trump campaign's involvement with Russia, which to date has resulted in 187 criminal charges, 35 indictments and plea agreements, and 6 guilty pleas, owing to the presence of a thing called evidence, of which this investigation has uncovered mountains. That's how it's different, you goddamn buffoons. Oh, and here's one last little interesting tidbit of some more news. Pizzagate was born when an anonymous user on 4chan made a post claiming to be a top-level government insider with proof that the Clintons were sex traffickers and the entire government was going to get brought down by this scandal. Gee, that's curious. It didn't quite stick the first time. Q, so you just rebooted it like Spider-Man? Well, it worked. So good job, Q. And more importantly, good job, America. You did it. Hey, beautiful people, thank you for watching the video till the end, where I say please like and subscribe and comment on the video and support us on Patreon if you'd like, .com/somemorenews, and listen to our podcast, Even More News. And you're great.